I go to international dance camps and I meet people there from all around the world, and one topic that often comes up is those wacky, silly, stupid British people who insist on still driving on the left. Why do they hold out? When are they going to see sense and drive on the right side of the road? And I point out that in fact they drive on the wrong side of the road, but they don't believe me. I'm just a British person being silly. There are a number of reasons I might be annoyed about this. One is that driving on the right is largely a French imposition. The Napoleonic Revolution spread through conquest this idea of driving on the right-hand side of the road, not because it was better in any way, but because it was simply a sign of conquest, of having yielded to the revolution. It didn't actually help anyone. It didn't make the roads safer, that's for certain. Another thing that annoys me is that, in fact, of course, it's not just the British who are holding out. Almost 1 in 3 drivers around the world actually drives on the left. The Japanese drive on the left. The Indians, and there are an awful lot of them, they drive on the left. Pretty much the whole of southern Africa drives on the left. Isolated places like Suriname and Guyana and Malta and Cyprus drive on the left. And pretty much the whole of Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, loads of Malaysians, they all drive on the left. So it's not just Britain holding out, and we're certainly not being silly, because there are good reasons to drive on the left. You see, you are a lopsided ape. Yes, you are, and I am too. Most of us are like me, in that we're right-handed. So our abilities with the right and left side are not identical. Imagine there were a tennis competition organised between the entire population of France and the entire population of Britain, but the French all had to play left-handed. Now, that would suit some Frenchmen, of course, because some are left-handed. But I think the British would have a massive advantage in that competition. Wouldn't you agree? So, imagine now you're driving a car. So are you going to have your quick reaction, strong and precise right hand on the steering wheel doing the difficult job, the job that requires quick reactions, precision and strength, whilst your slower, less coordinated hand is on the gear stick? Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? But an awful lot of Europeans, of course, are having to drive effectively left-handed. Now, which way round do they have their feet? Well, it doesn't really matter which way you have the pedals in a car. So in fact, you Europeans, you Americans and others watching this video, you with your right foot, which for most of you is your good foot, you use the accelerator and the brake. The accelerator you're using almost all the time, and you have to be very precise with that. And the brake, it's important to have quick reactions on the brake, isn't it? Your left foot, that can do the easy thing on the spot, just on the clutch. So when you have the choice of which way round the pedals are, which you do, you do it, if you like, right-handed. You are right-footed with your pedals, but you're left-handed with the other controls. Racing drivers, I know a lot of them use those paddles and so forth now, but back in the days when racing drivers could have the gear stick there or there, they pretty much all chose to have the gear stick on the left, and they had their good arm on the steering wheel doing the important and difficult task. Also, most people are right-eyed, and having your right eye on the right side of the car, judging the traffic coming the other way and seeing things just that little bit earlier is a good idea. And there's also a reaction time element here. Now, you've probably not had a serious accident, but I bet you've probably, in fact, I bet you've been in several near accidents. There have been several times when you've been on the road and you've gone, whoa, he didn't miss us by much. Oh, we just stopped in time. Did you see that? I nearly ran into him. I bet it's nearly happened to you loads of times. What if you had a quarter of a second extra reaction time? Would you have hit something? Would someone have hit you? Did you a quarter of a second or less than that can make the difference. And it seems it does. Now, there are lots of ways you can measure road safety. And of course, you have to try to compare like with like. Some countries have very high accident rates simply because there are an awful lot of people in those countries. Some have very low accident rates because hardly anyone in those countries owns a car. But when you start comparing like with like, say within the EU, and you look at countries like Belgium and Germany and France and Italy and so forth, and compare those, who's the safest? Well, it depends how you measure it. If you measure it in terms of population per 1,000 people, for instance, Britain, the UK, is the safest. But if you measure it in terms of cars on the road, number of cars, it's Britain again. But if you do it in terms of passenger miles, number of miles travelled, yep, it's Britain again. Britain has way safer roads. Now, why is that? Is it because our roads are extra straight and wide and grippy? No, actually, they're quite old and winding and bumpy a lot of the time. It's because our road markings are really good. Well, we've got cat's eyes, but no, that's not really the reason. Is it because our driving tests are particularly difficult? Well, they're a lot more difficult than, say, the American driving test, but they're not anything like as difficult as the German driving test. So, no, that's not it. It's because we drive on the left. It's because we drive on the left. And all you people who are used to driving on the right and think it makes no difference, think on this. 1.2 million people every year around the world are killed in road traffic accidents, and between 20 and 50 million of them are maimed. If you could do one thing that at a stroke would more than halve that, wouldn't it be worth doing?